Crank up the volume and get ready for real-world bird hunting by listening to the Wingmen Podcast by Eastmans. Now your host, Todd Helms.
This episode of the Wingmen Podcast is brought to you by Savage. You know, guys, a couple years ago, I started shooting a Savage Renegade shotgun and cannot tell you how impressed I have been with the product. I've put thousands of rounds through a couple of different models that I have, and they do nothing but go bang and kill birds, and that is what I need in a shotgun. The fit and performance is next level. I love how comfortable they are. I love the fact I can adjust the fit if need be. I love the fact that the gun is super tough, cycles and works in all conditions, and gotta say, they just plain kill birds. Hey guys, Todd Helms with the Eastmans Wingmen Podcast. I think that's what we're calling it now. We're kind of rebranding a little bit. We've launched YouTube specific page just for the Eastmans Wingmen Podcast. That's what we're calling it. We've been connected with Eastmans hunting journals and media from the very beginning, and we just thought we're going to bring it all under one umbrella and use that name Eastmans, like all the other ones. Eastmans Elevated, Eastmans Podcast, or Eastmans Journal Podcast Edition. That's Ike's.
That's Ike's podcast. That's a mouthful.
Yeah, the Western Huntsman, Eastman's Predator Pros. All of them. EBJ Life of a Bow Hunter podcast. We've got a full, huge suite of podcasts now, and it's fun. We get to play around on each other's podcasts a little here and there. And today, Scott and I are going to talk turkey. We realized that hunting with our kids recently has really opened some things up for us that there's probably a lot of other folks out there, especially dads. Not to take anything away from the moms, but dads have a tendency to get their kids out in the field and do stuff. There's some things that we have done to kind of set our kids up for success. My oldest daughter, JC, just shot her first turkey last weekend? No, 2 weekends ago. Sunday morning before church, we went out. She and I had done some scouting, and she said she wanted to shoot a bird, and it's awesome here in Wyoming. I got her enrolled in the Hunter Mentor program, and her little sister Ennis, who's not quite big enough to handle a gun quite yet, but we're getting there. Anyway, she said, "Daddy, I want to try to shoot turkey." And I thought, I think she's ready. You know, she shot a grouse last fall with a .22. She shoots a lot, and I thought, I think she can make it work.
So my girls, for some reason, I can't believe I'm going to admit this, especially with all our unethical take conversation. My girls have fallen in love with a bow. So Ella does not want to kill a turkey unless it's with a bow. She doesn't want to kill a deer unless it's with a bow. We're working on that.
That'll change.
It will change because she's, but last year I had the archery target out. It was one of those big flat ones that looked like a mule deer. And so we got her about 15 yards out with her bow, and she's practicing, and she started hitting vitals consistently. And so that, in and of itself, that's a big win. But I haven't taken the plunge on the shotgun with her yet because of how much she loves the bow. So
you don't want to distract from that. And we tease about bow stuff all the time.
It's funny.
Dan Picard and I go back and forth all the time, whether whatever it is, whether how I like to tease him about bows being an unethical means of harvest. If you practice, if you're proficient, obviously it's not, right? But I like to shoot turkeys with a shotgun. I really like doing it with that 410.
Well, and the other thing is like you and I've had this conversation. There are some animals that are just better to hunt or are a better experience to hunt with a bow.
Sure.
And like for instance,
elk.
The vitals on an elk are huge.
Not just the vitals, it's the way they behave in September during the rut. People hate me saying this, but there are similarities between elk and turkeys.
Well, I agree with you.
There are similarities there. I've said it a million times. I think if turkeys had a sense of smell like elk, they'd be a lot harder to kill. But there are similarities there, Scott, and because of those similarities, bow hunting for elk it's a kick in the pants. It's a ton of fun.
It is fun.
I try to make sure that I have that opportunity for myself and my wife and eventually my kids every September.
Yeah.
Every September, because it's something that I look forward to all year long. If you told me tomorrow that I had to pick a bow or a rifle for elk, I'd probably pick the bow. It's harder, it's more challenging, obviously, but it's the time of year, it's what the elk are doing. And you've mentioned before, you're like, dude, you just like calling it to animals.
Yeah, if you can't talk to them, you don't like hunting them.
I mean, I do, but mule deer in October, it's just like hide and seek, man. And I hated hide and seek when I was a kid.
I like that. So I'm a mule deer guy through and through.
And I love mule deer, but for me, the mule deer thing has gotten, man, this conversation went left in a hurry.
Okay.
We'll bring it back. Anyway, stay with us, guys. We're going to get to the turkey talk here in a minute. But, mule deer are a super special animal. And they've gotten to the point, honestly, where I feel like mule deer, unlike whitetails, where whitetails can support high harvest.
Yeah.
They can support being pounded on pretty hard for the most part. Mule deer can't. Well, they just don't have those numbers.
Yep.
And we're facing a situation here, especially in Wyoming, that holy smokes, man, mule deer are, you almost feel bad hunting one.
Yep.
Just the way that the situation that they're in with their numbers.
Yep.
The winters the winter we had 2 years ago, not that this winter's been easy, but the winter before, oh my goodness, it's just really tough. And it's getting to the point where a good mule deer tag in the West, just about any Western state, is going to be once in a lifetime.
Yep.
For a resident or a non-resident.
Yep. Agreed.
And so I was lucky enough to have a really cool tag, really great tag 2 years ago.
Yep.
Shot a great buck, not a giant deer, but a great deer. And he was what I was looking for. I think those opportunities for mule deer are just going to be like fewer and farther between. Yeah. So enjoying those hunts and really setting the bar high for yourself, that's the fun of mule deer hunting anymore. Because it's not the golden days of grabbing a general tag and going to Western Wyoming to hunt as a resident. Or there's not much there.
No, it's in rough shape.
And you grew up over there.
Yeah, I did grow up in there, and this is like I took some flack over an article. I called it "Why I Won't Hunt Region G and H." And bear in mind, I'm 40 years old, and at age 39 was the first time I didn't hunt Region G or H.
And for those guys that are listening to this, this is the Wingmen Podcast, obviously. When somehow we got hijacked talking about mule deer, and that's okay. Regions G and H are historically Wyoming's primo creme de la creme, best deer hunting units you can get.
It's the best habitat.
And for residents, they're over-the-counter tags.
Yep.
We can just buy it and go hunt.
Yep.
There's not as many elk in those mountains as there are in other parts of the state. Deer don't have to compete with them quite as bit. The genetics there are world-class.
Yep.
And so the feed is great, but those deer winter on the ceiling of the continent. They winter at 7,000 feet, and they just got brutalized a couple of years ago.
That winter was terrible, and so I chose not to hunt over there, which, I can bring this back to turkey. When I'm a mule deer guy, but I chose not to hunt in G&H, which meant I was going to look for other opportunities.
Right.
And so I've hunted turkey plenty before. Okay, let's not say that I just started hunting turkeys because there's no more mule deer. No, that's not the case. But in order to get that fix, well, now I'm looking at more than one state for turkey hunting.
Right.
And so it's just because turkey is like whitetail. They're expanding in certain places, even though they're getting hard in places like Kansas and Oklahoma, because of drought, obviously, and then
it's
segmentation.
The guys in the Southeast are seeing massive reductions in turkey numbers, and that's no secret. And it has primarily to do with nest predators and loss of habitat. The Midwest, to some extent, too. You talk to the Holder boys over at Raised Hunting, the podcast I did with them. They're seeing fewer birds every year. There's a lot of factors involved. Our turkeys in the western states are doing just fine.
Yep.
They're doing pretty well. There seems to be turkeys in places every year, especially it seems like in the fall. I see them in the mountains higher and higher and higher every year, and I'm chasing deer and elk. it seems like I'm seeing turkeys in places and I'm like, what? There's a turkey up here?
Yep.
But
and they're finding places to winter, which is cool.
Right, and having to, that's just modern hunting, keeping the focus on turkeys, being able to have multiple experiences through the spring. It's obviously going to make you a better turkey hunter. The more that you turkey hunt, the better you're going to get at it if you're intentional. If you're just out there doing the same thing over and over and over again, you're going to be what you're going to be. Hunting multiple states, whether it's for us Montana because we're close to it, or Colorado. If I was closer, I'd hunt some stuff in Colorado. South Dakota isn't that far. Idaho has some pretty good turkey hunting. The Pacific Northwest has some phenomenal turkey hunting, especially Oregon.
You and I were talking, we've gotten far away from the kids subject, but
we'll get back to it.
You and I were talking like we might try and pull some kind of turkey tour next year. I'm doing some research on how to acquire more than one tag in a couple of states and be able to do it in about a 5-day loop.
Montana has the ability, if you're able to be mobile, Montana has the ability where you can shoot like 5 turkeys in that state. Wyoming, I think you max out at like 3 birds.
I think so.
Because there's a type 3 tag in the Sheridan area that you could buy like over the counter as a leftover. If you apply for it, it's like 100% guaranteed draw. And you can get 2 of those. That with a general tag or a type 1 turkey tag in Wyoming give you 3 turkey tags. The problem you run into over there is it's where the turkeys live is you're going to have a hard time finding access.
Yeah.
It's mostly private ground. Some people will be like, come in here and shoot all these turkeys.
Yep.
And so there's door knocking opportunity there. It runs down, for me, it breaks down into just having enough time in the spring. There's so many other things to do. But back to the kids. You've been taking your kids out. You've been taking all of them out. Scott's got 4 kids, man. He's got a daughter that's a year younger than mine. Your oldest is. Then you have one that's the same age as my middle. And you have 2 boys that are a little bit older than my boy.
Jed's right in the middle of my 2 boys.
Is he in the middle?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we got kids, man.
Yeah.
Between your 4 and my 3, there's 7 youngins running around that are hungry to get out and do stuff with Dad.
So we've set it up, and this is, if I were to take one tip away, if you're trying to take kids out, like I can sit still. If it's just me by myself.
That's debatable. I've hunted with you.
It's true. But I can force myself to sit still for 3 or 4 hours if I need to. Whereas a group of kids can't. And so
especially when they're in a group.
Yep, because my kids are wanting to wrestle around, sit and play. Ian brought his little backpack along, so he's got a little backpack that's full of hunting toys. And so he brings that along. It's a big deal. He has to make sure he has all these little tags that have footprints on it that come along. They're his hunting tags. And so having that stuff in there, but make sure you buy a ground blind that's big enough. And when you do your scouting, scout for a place where you're going to be able to use it.
Having a blind is key. Turkeys don't pay any attention to blinds for the most part. Years ago, when ground blinds first came out, I remember looking at them thinking, there's no way. I'm going to have to set that thing up 3 months in advance. And so that's what we did. Yeah. And we didn't hunt a lot. We didn't hunt out of blinds a lot back in the day. And pop-up blinds were new. Guys that bow hunted turkeys saw the benefit of a blind really early on. And so they took advantage of it. I never really hunted out of a blind much until just recently, and it has to do with the kids. And a pop-up blind, I don't care what brand you have, they all work. Obviously, some are better than others, but a pop-up blind hides your movement. It cuts down on the amount of noise that or it increases the amount of noise that you can get away with. And it just, those turkeys really don't see you. It's like they don't really pay attention to the blind if you're running decoys, and their focus is going to be on those decoys. And so taking kids out, a blind is imperative. Then they can play in the dirt. They can wrestle around. They can do that. And then you hear a gobble, or you hear a hen, or you hear a turkey, and you're like, shh, guys, we got to be quiet. And then you lock it in, and it's go time.
Lock it in.
That's a story for another time.
That is a story for another, maybe a different podcast. I intentionally set it up where my dad came with me too. So like we set it up.
Dude, you must have like a giant blind.
It's a pretty good blind. It's not. I forget which one it is. It's an Ameristep. So I'll say this. Here's a couple things that I like about this particular blind, and this is probably features that you can have on a bunch of them. But Brandon actually told me when we were doing some deer hunting together, sitting in a different blind, he's like, I hate this one. It's got all this different stuff in it. He's like, my Ameristep's fantastic. So I started doing research last fall, and I found this one. I was like, this is the one I'm going to get. And so the cool part about it is you've got a bunch of different windows, and so some of it is forethought. So, but the noise reduction in the way that they built their windows, because a lot of them you see like you push down, you do sliding. That's a ton of noise in the morning. And so whereas this one, it's literally a little clasp that you undo and lower it down. So it makes no noise at all.
Really quiet.
Really quiet. And then there's mesh in front of it. And so, but there's a hole right in the middle of the mesh. Because most of the time when you're in a blind, whether it be turkey or whether it be deer, like I think back to your turkey in Montana, you just lean forward.
Right.
Where you leaned forward on this one, it would have been right where the hole is.
Okay.
And so that part is really nice because, well, I'll use this as an example. That mesh right there is an extra layer of concealment.
Right.
When I've got these kids with me that I'm shushing, I'm having to move a lot more than I normally would.
Right.
So that is nice. Now, with us filming, it would have never worked. But all you have to do is set it up at home once before and pull down the Velcro that you don't want.
Yeah.
And then putting up Velcro isn't noisy. Pulling it down is.
Yeah, and so and this leads directly into JC's turkey hunt.
Yeah.
JC's, I'm going to get this wrong. She's a third grader. I think she's 8. She'll be 9 here in a few days. Has been in the field with me and her mama since day one. Showed a very early interest in turkey hunting, and I thought, let's try it. And so I got her. She's been shooting forever. But some of the things the steps to success is what I want to break down. Because I was super intentional about teaching her, setting her up so in the moment of truth she could just get it done. You hear horror stories of, kids getting frustrated and kids crying or kids missing or kids that, and it's not like, okay, that's part of it too, is learning how to work through disappointment. But I don't want to eliminate that because those are lessons, but I wanted to set her up for success as much as possible. And so from an early on, she's been shooting a gun. She's familiar with it. Got a 410, got a really little 410 for her, and it was kind of like, this is a fun little toy, but you got to be really close to stuff. It's a really little one. I don't remember the brand, but I've got that Stevens 301 410 with the Leupold Delta Pro on it, and that I thought, I'll bet because it's a thumb hole. I thought, man, I'll bet she's big enough to shoot that with that little Leupold on it. All she's got to do is. Her head doesn't have to be on the stock. She's just got to be able to see the red dot and then put the red dot where she wants to shoot. So her head, even me, that gun's going to rest here on my jaw instead of burying my cheek on it. I kind of got to be up a little bit. But she was like head on top of the stock looking down the barrel. And so right from the jump, we started by scouting turkeys. Let's find turkeys. We went out, we found birds. Knew there were some birds in the area. I was like, okay, now we've got something to work towards. Then what we did is I took her out with that Stevens 301 and with that Leupold Delta Pro on it, and I set up a turkey target. And this is important. It wasn't just a target with a bullseye on it. It was a photographed. I can't remember the name of the brand now, but it's a photo of a turkey. And it's the hit and see, so it lights up. So when she shoots that target, she's instantly seeing that pattern. You have to walk up and look, and she could see it from 15, 20 yards away. So we played with the gun at home, got it in a support system. I have a Bog death grip, carbon fiber tripod, and it's a clamp, holds the gun for her. Because she's still 8 years old. She's a little girl. It's hard for her to hold a shotgun up. But she can get behind one and aim it. So we did that. We went out to a piece of public ground we could shoot on. I set up a cardboard box, put that turkey target on it. and I didn't let her shoot turkey loads. Guys, listen to this. When you've got kids, you're trying to teach kids how to shoot, teach small statured, even small statured adults, whether they're women or even dudes. Don't turn them loose with a 3-inch 12-gauge turkey load. Don't do that. You're going to teach horrible habits, and you're going to, even if they even want to pull the trigger out again after the first shot. I put that in a 410 is no different. A 3-inch turkey load in a 410, those Federal Premium Heavyweight TSS turkey loads that we use, the 3-inch 410 is 13/16 ounce of number 9 TSS shot, and it snorts. Even out of a 410. You think, oh, it's 410. Well, you and I are
we're big dudes.
Yeah. For an 8-year-old girl that weighs 70 pounds, dude, it's going to whop her hard. And so what I did was I've been building up inventory for 410 ammunition in the 2.5-inch length. Light target loads, stuff that she can shoot comfortably and it's not going to kick her teeth out. I put that Stevens in the death grip, cinched it down, had the box set up, and we put in a 2.5-inch number 9 target load. That's what we did. She's like, Daddy, I'm kind of nervous. I'm kind of scared. And I said, you don't have to be scared of this gun. I was like, this does not kick. And I said, I tell you what, I'm going to be over here on the side, and once you get set, I'll help hold the bipod down or the tripod down. It's going to kick even less then, because Fat Dad has a death grip on the death grip, right? Anyway, we walked through it. She knows how to operate the gun, cocks it, boom! And I think I had the target at 15 yards, and I think she could have killed the turkey with those 2.5-inch target loads at 15 yards. And her eyes lit up. She's like, I want to shoot that whole box of ammo. Cool. Because I didn't let her shoot that hard-kicking Federal Premium load right out of the gate. And she shot a whole box. I had a whole stack of turkey targets, and she shot a whole box of 410 ammo. I made her practice like, okay, that bird, we're going to run through a scenario here, and I'm going to count down from 5, and you have to shoot in that before I get to 1. Well, that turned out to be exactly what she needed to be able to do, was acquire a target. I pointed the gun like over to the side where she had to move the gun and get it on the turkey and acquire on the box. We simulated as much hunting stuff that day at the range. And she's done enough shooting before that where she knows how to shoot. And she's actually a really good shot. So we just needed a turkey to cooperate. But I set her up. I made sure that she was comfortable with the gun, that everything was as controlled a situation as I possibly could control it. That way I'm not having to yell at her when we're in a field. I'm not having to correct her, and I'm not having to do this. We can just enjoy the moment. And she's set up for success. So we practiced and practiced and practiced and practiced. And if I can't harp on that enough. I can't say that enough, guys. If you're listening to this and you want to get someone involved in hunting, practice a ton. Abraham Lincoln was a famous quote from Abraham Lincoln said, if you give me 6 hours to chop down a tree, I'm going to spend the first 4 sharpening the axe. Preparation is key to hunting success. Success in life in general, but we're talking about turkey hunting. This episode of the Wingmen Podcast is brought to you by Leupold Optics. I've been running Leupold Optics for a long time on the big game side of things, and I love the performance and the quality of that brand. But when Leupold brought performance eyewear into the mix a couple of years ago, I thought I'd seen it all, but I was wrong. That performance eyewear from Leupold keeps my eyes protected. It helps me with my target acquisition with a crisp, clear sight picture. And guys, I got to be honest with you, I'm stoked to be partnered with a company like Leupold. So for all your optics needs, give Leupold a look.
And
set people up for success.
And in all honesty, that's a big piece of the equation with my kids because they latched onto the bow. And so if I've got time, I want to do the thing that they enjoy.
Right.
And
make it fun.
And they've spent time at the range with me. They've shot, things of that nature. However, them lighting up about practicing with Dad with the bow, and being there.
That's what they want to do.
That's what they want to do.
Yep.
And they'll shoot with a gun eventually, but and my point is that the most important thing is to go out. The most important thing is to have them doing things. Me bringing their little bow along camping is going to matter more than just about anything else to what I bring along.
Same thing, Scott. We have a couple little bows, and my kids like to shoot a bow too. And everywhere we go, if we're going to be there for a day or two, those bows and foam target come along.
Yep.
They shoot. I think a gun for a lot of kids is a lot. It's a lot to process. They're loud. Even if they don't kick.
Yep.
That muzzle blast scares kids.
Yep.
At least even if it doesn't scare them, it gives them a little bit of, a little bit of flinch. I mean, it does. Their guns are loud. I'm not gonna suppress a 410 turkey gun.
Yep.
But she can wear ear pro, and I mean serious ear pro. I'm not talking about trying to stuff foam plugs in an 8-year-old's little tiny ear canals. I'm talking over the ear, ear pro, where she can barely hear me when I'm talking to her. Including while we were hunting. We had the gun set up. That morning she shot her bird. We had the gun set up just like it was in practice, and I had the ear pro right on the stock of the gun. So all she has to do is reach up and put the ear pro on.
Yep.
I'm right in her ear. She can still hear me, but thinking through all those things and being deliberate about your situation and how you set your kids up, or anyone for that matter, is going to pay huge dividends because then you're not scrambling in the moment of truth. You controlled all of the controllables because there's so much of hunting that is uncontrollable. We can't control. Ultimately, I can't control what turkey's going to do in the morning.
Nope.
I can
You
scout
can
him.
talk to him.
I can scout him. I can call him. I can be in the best possible location. I can call. But ultimately, if he wants to walk 40 yards outside my decoys and not commit, we're not going to get a shot. So, anyway, to the hunt, to JC's hunt. We scouted the bird. We knew he was there. There's one mistake that I made, and this is a funny story. We were busy the night before. On Saturday night, we had other stuff going on, and we couldn't go out and roost those birds. And I'm a very firm believer in having a game plan for them for the following morning. I want to roost those birds. I want to know where they are. We didn't have a chance to do that. So we got up super early Sunday morning. I had everything ready to go. I made her hot chocolate in a thermos bottle. I mean, we had everything dialed. Had the blind, had chairs, had decoys. Made her carry the decoys, so she's part of it, right? And I carried everything else. We hike in. Park the truck. Of course, it's like 4:45 in the morning. We hike into where I'm going to set the blind up, which if the roost is here, your cup is the roost, and this field is where they're feeding, this is about a mile of river bottom. The distance. They're flying down, they're strutting and staging, and then they're walking a very narrow corridor that's maybe 150, 200 yards wide out to this field. It's taking them several hours to get here in the morning because I did watch them the previous week. So I didn't want to be set up right at the roost. I wanted to be set up right, not quite in the middle, but a couple hundred yards from their roost. Because like you said, we're going to be making noise in the morning. We're setting up a blind in the morning, and it's even if it's early. So keep in mind, we did not go out the night before. We hike into our spot. We get about 300 yards from the roost. I'm like, this is where we're going to set up. And my daughter sneezes. I mean, loud. Loud sneeze, man. There's there's some broken trees here, and and none of them are big, right? You know the property we're on. None of those trees are big.
No.
She sneezes, and the bird gobbles right above our heads. Like 60 yards from us. He gobbles, and it's pitch black. And I went, I guess we're not setting up here. This is too close, you know? Totally would have known that if I would have gone out the night before. This is why it's important to scout the night before. We just couldn't. So I just took it on faith that they'd be in the roost that they're always in. They weren't. That bird was right in the middle of the property. And so we went back much closer to where they're actually going to feed because he's already in the middle.
Yeah.
And I'm 99% positive he's going to come out and feed in this barley field, this green growing barley field. So we set up in the most narrow part of the property. Now it's only 150 yards across this little plateau, but it's bermed because everything, this river bottom out here steps down to the river, right? And we're on like the second step. So you can't see it from the road or from the field, and that's why those birds like to travel that. We get the blinds set up, real quiet. Now I'm more confident because I'm like, okay, we got some distance between us and this bird. We're not going to blow him up out of the roost, whatever. Starts to get light. He starts doing his thing. He starts gobbling. There's a Jake with him. No hens anywhere.
Yeah.
Which is perfect. And she could listen to the whole thing. It gets light, and I don't know what shooting time was, but it gets light. Pretty soon, he flies down. Of course, I can't see him. I can just tell, okay, now he's on the ground, right? And I told her, I said, this might take a little while, but he's probably going to come over here. And I got the decoys on, kind of set up on the left. She's a right-handed shooter, so I want very natural to just like get in the gun and do this. Instead of being out here, where she's kind of got to twist a little bit.
Yeah.
And in that whole melee, we ended up not grabbing the second chair out of the truck because the bird was literally right where I parked the truck almost. And I was like, no, just one chair you could sit on my lap, Anyway, he comes out. Daddy, I can see him. Here he comes. And I look through that mesh window and I can see the bird, and he's about 300 yards away. He popped out now and he's in the open. And he's gobbling every time I call. He's gobbling. Every time I call, he's gobbling. I'm like, all right. And he slowly makes his way over to us, and he's spitting, drumming, gobbling. I mean, he is putting on a show. Spitting, drumming, spitting, drumming, spitting, drumming, gobbling, 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 gobbling. He gets into about 30 yards. And I'm like, man, he really needs to come closer. And he starts to like, I don't know about this.
Yep.
Like, you could tell.
He was thinking hard about it.
Yeah. He was fired up. He was hot, but he wasn't aggressive. Like, he wasn't sure he wanted to go over to that decoy spread because I had the Jake decoy set up and with the laydown hen, and then I had a hen to the left of him. So he had to walk across in front of the blind to get to the decoys. And I had the way that divider is in the front window of that blind.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
I had the gun stuck out about that far, pointed right at the decoys. He comes in all the way, and at one point he is 5-6 yards from the decoys. And he's not going to get any closer. His body language doesn't really change. He's still spitting, drumming, gobbling, but he starts like kind of looking around. His head color doesn't go red, but you could tell he just wasn't quite sure. I think he could probably tell those decoys were plastic. Yeah. It was an overcast day. All the colors, he could just see really, really well. And I could probably, and I think he probably had his butt kicked a bunch this spring. He's on the left side. He stops and he turns and he's starting to go away. I got the 410. He's at like 15 yards. And I'm watching him start to move away, and she can't turn the gun because the gun's hitting the support in the window.
Yep.
So I grab the whole tripod, and I pull it in, and I stick it out the other window. Now she can move freely. And this is where having her practice getting on the box pays dividends, because it's not just lined up on the bird and she pulls the trigger.
Yep.
She has to acquire the target, and he's moving, and he's gobbling, and I cannot get him to stop. Because I'm running a slate call this time, and I'm calling to him, and he gobbles every time, but he's walking, and he's not doing the whole head bob thing. He's just like, he's over it. He's going to go feed.
Yep.
And he's getting further and further and further, and I'm thinking, you got to shoot this bird. I'm like, JC, you got to shoot him. JC, you have to shoot him now. JC, you got to shoot him. And she's not shooting. Mm-hmm. Finally, I called one more time. He stuck his head out, gobbled, and then he kind of lifted his head up, and she pasted him. Smoked him. I mean, those Federal, I can't say enough about that TSS from Federal, man. That stuff's just wicked. Especially out of a 410. The cat's meow. So she's excited. I'm over the moon. Yep. I'm like, yeah, get out there. I range it with the new Leupold RX 5000 rangefinder that I've been playing with all spring. I range it, and it's 24 yards from where her turkey's laying to the blind. I'm like,
that's
with a 410, it's a 30-yard game, So, but I asked her, I'm like, why didn't you shoot him sooner? And she's like, I couldn't stay on him. It's like I was trying to move the gun with him, and I couldn't. He was moving faster than I could move. I said, okay, so what'd you do? This is phenomenal. And it goes back to that deliberate practice of having her move the gun around and get on the target. She's like, well, I just put the red dot in front of him, and when his head, when he walked into it, I pulled the trigger. And she smoked him. I mean, it was a perfect shot.
That's pretty impressive.
Being able for her to see that pattern hit the turkey target the day before or previous to the hunt was a huge confidence booster.
Yep.
Because she realizes that I don't have to be perfectly on him. Yeah, I need that red dot to be aimed small, aim for a spot, but you're shooting a pattern instead of trying to shoot a bullet like a 22. She had some confidence there. It's like she understood, okay, I've got about the size of a basketball that I can hit him with and do the job.
Somebody once described shooting a shotgun to me to understand kind of how it works is you're shooting a basketball with a football. If you're, let's take geese for instance, like a goose roughly is body size of a basketball, and so obviously you want to lead their head as often as you can. But when you're shooting when it's coming out of the shotgun, it's shaped similar to a football.
Cone. Yeah, it's a cone.
And so you can lop one end off and it's a cone. But when you look at the size of what you're most of the time, especially with a turkey, with how tight you're trying to get their patterns, that makes sense. But that's pretty impressive. She recognized that's what she had to do.
I just think it all clicked, and it goes back to, I cannot emphasize this enough. It goes back to that deliberate practice. Where we shot at a turkey target. It looked like a real turkey, and we didn't just line it up and pound it.
Yeah.
I made her move the gun. I pointed the gun over here. I'm like, okay, that bird comes in from the left. He's just coming from the left, and you got to make a shot. And I'm going to count down from 5. Go. 5, 4, and she's gone the gun, moves it to the box. 3, 2, boom.
Yep.
Practicing like we were going to play.
Yep.
was paramount to her success. Interesting thing about that bird, when I was scouting him, I'd seen him 4 or 5 times. I could not put a beard on that turkey.
Really?
And in Wyoming, our law stipulates there has to be a bearded turkey. I couldn't see a beard on this bird. Gobbling, strutting, spitting, drumming. It's obviously a gobbler.
Yep.
But no beard. And finally, when he came out and I'm watching him through the binoculars coming in, I'm like, it's the same bird. And I watched him, and at 20 yards, he's full strut, no beard on this bird.
Really?
And he goes and drops strut, and then I could see a little bump sticking out in the binoculars.
Yeah.
And I'm like, he's got a beard. He's legal. What had happened was this bird had gotten beard rot.
Yeah.
And he had a stump of a beard that was about an inch long sticking out. And it stuck out. It basically stuck out just far enough out of his feathers where there was a bump there. And I'm like, he's got a beard. It's just like rotted right off. What it looks like is, looks like you took a torch and singed it down to a nub. They're brown curled ends. That's what it looks like. And it's beard rot. And that's what this bird had.
That bird I shot in the Black Hills when we were hunting with Brian Turkey of High Mountain Brian Tucker of High Mountain Seasonings.
Yeah.
Wow, got that all mixed up. that bird, like, this is really odd for a Merriam's. His beard was like dragging on the ground.
Yeah, that's really strange.
But he had rot on it.
Yep.
And so, like, on the bottom end of it.
It's pretty common. I think this is the first bird. Her bird was the first turkey I've ever seen that had eaten, that beard rot had affected it right down to the nub, to the follicle almost. I'd never seen one quite that bad, but once he got really close and I could really look him over at 10 power, I'm like, yeah, there's a little beard there. Because, I mean, I'm thinking, dude, is she not going to be able to pull the trigger on this turkey that's right in her lap, gobbling and spitting? I'm like, we don't have a lot of turkeys here.
Yeah.
This is not primo turkey country. We have some. And I'm like, dude, I don't know. And when I saw that little nub, I was like, oh, yeah, we're legal. This is a legal bird. And he was a mature gobbler. Had spurs and full fan, was not a Jake. It's interesting because he was running with a Jake, and watching them feed and interact side by side, the body size difference was astounding. Like, you could just tell that's a mature gobbler versus this Jake. Just didn't have much of a beard. It had been rotted off. Yeah. So that's something else to kind of keep in mind. She didn't care.
Yeah.
She didn't care at all. It was all about the experience of killing the bird. I'm getting ready to mount the fan up for her. That's in the drying, curing process. I use a new product from Velvet Technologies called Fan Lock.
I need you to send me that link.
Yep,
actually.
I will. It seems to be working pretty well. You gotta basically get as much of the flesh off the fan as you can, and then it just dries out, desiccates the rest, and preserves it.
Nice.
And so they're in the garage drying still. At that point, I'll probably spray them again this afternoon when I get home. But setting her up for success so she could just focus on shooting the turkey was all those things we did in practice. And I'm telling you guys, that's how we started this podcast. I'm telling you, when you're trying to teach someone how to hunt, how to shoot, break it down into the simplest forms and practice like you're going to play. Once she was comfortable with the gun, how it operates, she knew how to load it, she knew how to cock it, how to uncock, she knew how to do all that stuff. Then it's like, okay, now we're going to shoot. And now we're going to take our shooting, after you're good with shooting it, we're going to elevate it to the next level where you got to actually, like, we're mimicking a hunt. And not letting her shoot those turkey loads, those full power loads, so she wouldn't be afraid of it.
Yeah.
Because, man alive, that's what my dad did. He's like, oh, we're going to hunt turkeys? Here's a 3-inch 12 gauge with super duper hard kicking mule loads. And I've always been thick and hard-headed, so, recoil's never really bothered me. But, man, I know it bothers some folks. And mitigating that as much as possible, using ear protection while they're hunting, right down to, I went home and I ordered some electronic muffs. I ordered, I think, 3 or 4 pair of them after that because I was like, they got to be able to hear me. And so I did some research and found ones that got really high reviews, and I ordered them. Just making sure that you have that success built in by setting them up for it. She was able to walk away from that hunt just focused on the accomplishment, on what she did. She called a little bit. She wanted to run the call, and the bird gobbled to her a couple times, and I was like,
that works.
Cool, good job. Now give me the call because I'm going to finish this bird. But I think she probably could have called him in. But it was, and you'll get there, it was the coolest feeling in the world. You made a comment when we were in Montana about, dude, you were way more excited when I shot my bird than when I personally shot a bird in the morning. And that's where I'm at. I love shooting turkeys. I love shooting elk and deer. I love being the guy behind the gun or the bow. But when it comes to things like turkeys especially, man, I'd rather see my kid do it. If I had to choose, be like, you get one turkey tag, and you can hunt it, or your kid can hunt it. The kid's going to do it every time. That's where I'm at in my hunting journey right now. I just get a kick out of watching other people do it.
Right now, my kid, like I said, my kids haven't pulled the trigger yet. They're going to, and I'm going to let them sort through which animals they want to do it with. I haven't killed a turkey with them in the blind yet. So part of it is I want them to see it.
That's why I shot that Jake last year.
Yep.
You know, people, and I'm kind of surprised actually on that video. Guys, shameless plug, go to the Wingmen YouTube channel, watch last year's turkey hunt. I killed 2 birds. I killed one in Montana with Dan and Ben Bishop, and I killed another one here on the same property JC shot Herbert on last year. I hunted a gobbler out there for 3 or 4 days and just couldn't get him close enough to shoot him with a 410. I took the girl, we set the blind up. I took my daughters with me. The first morning that I did that, I had a whole pack of Jakes come in.
Yep.
And I thought, I'm shooting one of these Jakes. My girls are with me in the blind. I want them to see what you were just talking about.
Yeah, because like if I were to set my oldest up right now to try and shoot a turkey, she's never seen one killed. She doesn't know how they behave. She would have no idea or no point of reference for how they should behave other than what she's seen on our videos. And I don't feel like that's fair to her yet.
They got to see it firsthand.
And now I'll say this, on the other end of the spectrum, my kids have seen a lot of white-tailed deer killed, like on a field, and and been a part of breaking it down, that sort of thing.
It's not the death that's the issue.
It's the actual I don't feel like where my kids are at, and my oldest is a year younger than yours, so there's a progression here. If I can get her or even Joy exposed to that kill, then yes, then I think because they've seen the behavior of the animal.
Right.
Because worst case scenario, like I hate the story of the young kid getting the bad hit on their first one, because it can ruin a hunter's experience. And I think not knowing an animal's behavior or what to expect when the moment of truth comes, I think that creates more of those bad scenarios than anything else.
Yep, I agree with you, and that's, like I said, that's why you take your kids, like what you're doing now. That's why you take your kids out. You know, they have to see that modeled behavior. They have to see that modeled action, so they can emulate it, so they can imitate it, and they can incorporate some of that. You know, my kids have been on hunts and on fishing trips with me and their mom since, I don't remember a time we didn't take them.
Yep.
There was probably one of my biggest regrets, Scott, was when JC was 1. Her birthday's in May. I drew her mama and I both drew really good elk tags for an area close to home. And we hunted with a bow a lot. And my parents actually came out and spent almost the entire month of September living with us so we could hunt. But then circumstances changed. My parents had to go home. For opening day of rifle season, we couldn't get a babysitter. It also happened to be homecoming. Nobody could babysit. So I went out opening morning. I left Mama and JC at home. And I called in a decent 6-point bull. Not a giant, but a good 6-point bull. I called him into like 30 yards with a rifle in my hand, and I didn't shoot him. I was standing 10 feet from my four-wheeler when I did that. 10 feet.
Yep.
And it wasn't like it was some, X Games course to get back in there either.
Yeah.
It was pretty simple. And I think back on that, and my biggest regret is that I didn't have Grace, didn't have my wife pack JC up, put her in the chest rig, and we ride in there, because she could have shot that bull, and JC would have been right there with us. It would have been easy pack out, easy wide open country, so we could see any bears coming. Everything. It was custom made. I kick myself every day for that. So moving into JC's hunting, we're going every chance we get.
Yep.
Every chance we get. And at this point, she doesn't have a choice.
Yeah.
It's not, hey, do you want to go? It's, hey, we're going to go turkey hunting in the morning. And I'm going to get you up at this time, get all your clothes laid out. Because let's face it, man, if you give kids an option, you say, hey, do you want to go turkey hunting in the morning? Some kids are going to be like, some young kids will be like, yeah. But some of them a lot of them are going to be like,
well,
no.
I asked Joy whether she wanted to go to an event, a family event we had another part of the state with mom and sister, or if she wanted to come turkey hunting with us. She picked turkey hunting. And
I think some of that stuff where you give them some choices is you have to do that, right? But if you really want them to experience that success, they have to be with you, and they don't get a choice. They're going to go.
She didn't get a choice when she was younger, but now she wants to do it.
Right.
So
because you took her.
Yep.
Yeah.
And part of it too is you have to take advantage. Like, this is to all dads out there. There are phases in your kid's life, and guys, I'm not probably as seasoned as some of you listening to this, but you'll get this why I'm saying this to the young dads. There are phases in life where your kids are going to be daddy's kids. There are other times where they want to spend time with mom. There are other times where they love the grandpas. But when they recognize when they are in the I love daddy phases, and that is when you need to take them on the activities that you want them to do. Like, hunting's not the only thing that I do, but I have to recognize that, like, okay, I love to play guitar, I love hunting, I love woodworking. So if I want my kids to see those things and understand that it's important to do things, to know how to use your hands, to know how to do all these different things.
Right.
And it's not even that they do those specific things. If the woodworking translated into
No, but they see it as a
metalworking.
They see it, your passion for it, and I think your kids need to see that you're passionate as a dad.
Yep.
As a father and a husband, that you're passionate about something. And if it's duck hunting, cool. Your kids have to see that. And then that will spark their own passions. They might, JC might grow up and another couple of years be like, nah, Dad, I don't want to hunt. I don't want to hunt. She's going to get as much of it as I can I'm going to get her involved in as much of it as possible so she can make an informed decision later on. Where if she decides in her 20s, she's going to hunt pretty much until she's not going to have a choice. She's going to hunt until she leaves the house.
Yeah.
Or whatever that may be.
But let's use that young lady we talked about that's babysat for both of us. She hunts now, and on borderline almost on her own. She comes home for it to be a family affair, but she does it because she was exposed to it at a much younger age.
Right. And Wyoming's unique.
Yeah.
You know, hunting is much more a way of life out here, and it doesn't matter. Yeah. Boy, girl, man, woman, it doesn't matter. People out here hunt. It's just kind of interesting. But without going into whole, you should be doing this as a dad. I'm not gonna preach at anybody. But if you want your kids to hunt, you have to take them with you.
Yep.
You know, I think about what my dad did, and I had a great childhood. My dad was awesome. But, man, there's some things I look at and go, I would never do that to my children.
Yep.
You know?
Yep.
It's like, I can't believe we wanted to continue to go sometimes, you know? But to each their own, you know? And I'll make my own mistakes with my kids, as I already have. Different than, what he did. Yep. But one of the things that he did that's just stuck with us, man, is he just took us all the time. And to the detriment of his own hunting success. Yep. He's dragging two young pups around in the field with him everywhere he goes, You
and I have talked about that too. Like, I'm a mule deer guy, so I put a lot of emphasis on it. I've got some really nice bucks that are on my wall that I'm proud of. Now I'm at the point where, like, okay, I'm going to be very picky about those other opportunities where it can be something. I want it to be something, like, I'm not just going to pull the trigger to pull the trigger. The opportunities that I'm chasing and that I am looking at are going to be equal of that's already on the wall or better for me. And then I'm going to take my kids with all my other opportunities.
Right.
Like when my tag last year for deer, the weather just didn't cooperate. So I switched it to a hunt on the river looking for a whitetail buck so that Ian could just see me kill one.
Right.
Right. That was what mattered more.
Yeah, and that's what you boil it down to. But they got to be with you. And yeah, there's some hunts where it's like, I'm not taking the kids. Yep. This isn't appropriate for that, or it's not feasible for that. A lot of but as often as we can. Yep. Yeah, they're going to go. 100%. And just set them up for success is the biggest thing, And it was funny because we did, after it was all said and done, I got thinking about it. I'm like, man, she was one and done. Her first turkey hunt, she went on. She killed a gobbler. And not a Jake. She didn't bushwhack it. I mean, he came right in the decoys and she smoked him. It was perfect. And I'm thinking, man, a lot of people go a long time without getting to experience that in turkey hunting, where they're struggling to figure it out, or they're struggling to find birds, or it doesn't work out that way. And hers was like, read the script, it was perfect. And so I started thinking about how I could replicate that success. And that's what it boils down to. It was all preparation that set the stage for that. We knew where the bird was, well, kinda, until she sneezed, and then he did something different. But because we'd scouted, I knew where he was going to go. Yep. More than likely, right? And so we knew how to pivot immediately. Like, nope, plan B, boom, and I knew exactly what to do. Because we'd scouted. Yep. We prepared, we scouted. We practiced with the calls. We practiced with the gun. Mm-hmm. So all of those things, when the moment of truth came, all those things had already been taken care of. All she had to do was make the shot, and she did. And she might miss the next 10. Who knows?
Doesn't matter. She got her first.
Exactly.
Got her hooked.
And she's hooked now. The first thing she said, we FaceTimed her cousins in Iowa, and her oldest cousin in Iowa is a little younger than her and has been out trying to get a turkey, but Dad's super busy and just haven't had a lot of time to do it. And she got off the phone with them, showing them the bird and everything, and they were all happy, and it was all cool. Her oldest cousin actually shot a really nice whitetail buck last year at, I don't know, at an incredibly young age, which I think is cool. But we get off the phone with them, and she's like, Daddy, I want to go to Iowa and hunt turkeys next year with my cousins. I'm like, done.
Easy.
Done. All it is an application, and we'll do it. So we got to figure that out. But guys, we're not going to hold you over any longer, but this is a conversation that Scott and I had, kind of a water cooler conversation, and congratulating JC about her bird, and we got talking about it and thought, man, we did I did some things to make this hunt as successful as possible, and we want to talk about them. We've said a long time ago, our goal with Wingmen is to educate and entertain. And obviously we hope that you enjoy the conversations like this, but if you can walk away from this going, you know what, my kid's ready to do this and I'm going to do this, or maybe you can apply it to your own hunting, there's things to take away. And that's the whole goal with when we sit down and have these conversations and break down hunting like this, is that you benefit from it. You could take some of that application out into the field and be successful. So we hope you enjoyed this. Thank you for listening. Really appreciate it. And turkey season's kind of running out all around the country, but I know I've got plans to get out probably this weekend, I'm thinking.
Do the same, I think.
It's Mother's Day weekend, but see, my house is like birthdays run right into Mother's Day. Mm-hmm. And so we just kind of do one thing and call it good. And we did that last weekend.
I have Mother's Day and anniversary in one day.
Why'd you do that?
It's the time frame that works to get married. We knew it was going to happen at some point, so every 7th year it happens. So
yeah, it just is the way it is. But I have my middle, Ennis, is dying to go on a turkey hunt with Dad. And so I'm probably going to, we're not going to hunt here. We're probably going to go on a little road trip and make it an adventure.
It'll be fun.
Yeah, it should be a good time.
It'll be fun.
So anyway, guys, get out there, enjoy the rest of your turkey season, and hit us up on social media. When you make your post, tag Wingmen in that, and we'll share it, and we'll comment on it. Make sure everybody celebrates your success. Again, thanks for listening, and until next time, we'll see you in the field.